Hello. Welcome to the Christchurch Fox Chapel podcast. It's the fastest growing, conservative, evangelical, charismatic, alacritus podcast in the entire Fox Chapel area.
Look at them yo-yos, that's the way you do it. You play the guitar on the MTV. That ain't working, that's the way you do it. Money for nothing and your chicks for free. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Let me tell you, them guys ain't dumb. Maybe get a blister on your little finger. Maybe get a blister on your thumb. We got to install microwave ovens.
You know, there's been a few complaints recently, Ben, that our Eurodance, Kunk Fusion and folk rock has not really been hitting the mark for listener of a certain age. So we're returning to our roots with Dire Straits and a bit of Pink Floyd in a few moments' time.
I thought we were, my target audience in my mind is a middle-aged Russian man living in like Novosibirsk, Siberia. Yeah. That's kind of who I figure, like in the middle of a bot farm. That's kind of who I figure listens to our podcast most of the time.
Money for nothing.
Money, is that what that's called?
Yes.
Money for nothing. Well, we're talking about money. Hopefully not for nothing. Because we're looking at, this is like an addendum? An appendix?
I think it's something like that, yeah. An epilogue.
An epilogue to our study of 2 Thessalonians. And so what we're doing is looking at another letter that Paul wrote in which he mentions the Thessalonians. I think we've mentioned this in podcasts and sermons a little bit, but he writes to the Corinthians, and Corinth is a couple hundred miles away from Thessalonica. It's more, what is it, east?
Yes.
Is it more east? Yeah. Okay. It's like southeast, I think. I could be wrong. But so Paul would have been to Corinth before he went to Thessalonica.
Right. There's 2 letters to the Thessalonian church. There's 2 letters to the Corinthian church.
Yeah.
Though some nerds think there may have been 3 letters to Corinth, but let's not get into that. It's in both of those situations, though, Paul is in corresponding with these churches, picking up on particular issues that they had.
Yeah.
In the case of the 2 Corinthians letter, it seems that Chloe has these people who report to Paul some issues in the church, and Paul responds to the issues. And we get this sense in 2 Thessalonians that he's responding to a kind of pseudo epistle doing the rounds, or fake preachers coming in.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes we're figuring out what the problems were in the church by listening to what he's addressing and thinking, well, that must be the issue he's been told about.
Yeah.
Fascinatingly, with 2 Corinthians, Paul uses the Thessalonian church as an example for them to emulate. So that's why we're here.
So it's funny, he brags about the Corinthians earlier on to the Thessalonians, and then he brags about the Thessalonians to the Corinthians.
Oh, really? I didn't spot that. That's funny.
Yeah, I forget where it's at, but like, he does.
Yeah. Okay.
He does talk about how
classic.
He mentions to them, I think in 1 Corinthians, that he's been telling the Thessalonians about how like excited they are about this generosity thing. Okay, so this is the first thing I think is really cool about this whole passage. Just to give a little context, Paul, this is for what's called the Jerusalem collection, which always struck me as tremendously boring, but actually it's kind of blowing my mind right now. So Jews, historically, from the time of the Torah and everything, where they saw Gentiles, which are non-Jews, outsiders, as unclean, and over time that there's a real bias against outsiders, right?
Yes.
It's an insider-outsider religion.
Yeah.
And so the outsiders are bad, and even called dogs sometimes. And so Jesus comes in and is first goes after the lost sheep of Israel, but then with the coming of the Spirit, everyone kind of realizes the Holy Spirit opens everyone's eyes and says, actually, like, this is not just for the Jews. And God leads this. There's this outward trajectory that ultimately has enveloped us. And so I'm giving the long version of this, aren't I?
No, it's useful.
And so there's you have all these outsiders who, the first Christians were Jews, and they would have had this prejudice against Gentiles.
Right.
So the gospel has gone out now to the Gentiles, places like Thessalonica and Corinth, and around AD 51 or so.
Okay. Done your homework?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. Somewhere around there. So Paul and Barnabas are at Antioch, which is like the original hub of kind of the early Christian movement. It's the first place where the Christians were called Christians. And this, a prophet comes and basically gives the church insight. And they, pray and realize that this is actually from the Lord, that there's going to be this famine in Jerusalem. And sure enough, it comes.
Yes.
There's this massive famine throughout Judea, and the Christian church there, since they were pushed to the margins of society by their faith, they're ostracized, kicked out of the synagogues, as John tells us. They now are economically in the worst of straits, in dire poverty.
Right.
And who shows up to the rescue now?
The Gentiles.
The dogs.
The poor.
The poor dog. Yeah. And so that's what's going on. Paul is collecting money from these crazy outsiders who the Jews would have looked down upon.
Right.
And they are sending, literally, they're not Venmoing.
Right.
They're carrying delegations with chests full of gold and armed men back across the Mediterranean Sea to bring this stuff to the apostles in Jerusalem.
Amazing.
To relieve them. And it's a sign of, it really shows just the unity of the church that, like, I think it's just remarkable.
It shows a lot of things, yeah.
Like, I get so myopic in my vision of what the church is and who I should be like, well, why should I care for someone I've never met?
Yeah. I spoke to an African missionary, and I'll clarify that. I spoke to an African man who was a missionary to the English Cotswolds a few years ago. And the African churches had sent him to Middle England to proclaim the gospel because that particular diocese had really abandoned the gospel. And so there were many people going to English churches in this beautiful part of the country who'd never heard really of the work of Jesus before.
Yeah.
They'd heard of Jesus in stories, but they'd never really understood what his birth and his life and his death and his resurrection was all about, why it meant something.
Yeah.
And so Africa was sending missionaries to England, which is kind of funny. And it's a similar thing. I mean, the only reason that those African churches had a faith to start with is because some 19th century English missionaries went out to them. But now they're coming back. And I thought that was a bit like this.
Yeah, it is. The only difference is that the Christians in Jerusalem could have at least made some sort of case that that their hometown is the center, is where Christianity is actually centered.
Yeah.
Whereas in the West, we are clearly the outsiders. Christianity is clearly not a Western religion. I mean, it made the West, but like it came from the Near East.
I feel a need to argue, even though I'm wrong. I mean, the Prime Meridian runs through Greenwich, runs through London. I think really England is the centre of all things. But I mean, I take your point.
Well, doesn't the Prime Meridian run through
Africa? Yes,
there?
No, it does. No, but it was in Nigeria.
But doesn't it run through there though? Because the English invented
time. Yes.
Latitude and longitude. They like set the system.
Longitude, yeah.
Longitude.
George Harrison with his pocket watch did, yeah.
Time. I'm just saying.
Well, it's a different podcast, but yes, it was very difficult at sea to navigate longitude because you needed to find out how far you were from the prime meridian at sea. And of course, your grandfather clock, the pendulum, would get knocked off by the waves. So yes, it was the English that figured out a way to navigate longitude at sea.
Oh yeah, there you go. And so they put the prime meridian
so that is
through Mother England.
But I do feel that that's a sidetrack. So
you have basically Christianity is Christianity does not have a center in any one place. It's not a place centric or a people centric in the sense of any particular ethnography. Or,
all times and all places. We had this concept of this peace of God working everywhere and everywhen.
Yeah.
And it's global, right? I mean, the Great Commission is to go into all the nations. So there's always been this sense that Israel will be a light to the nations and draw others in.
And it's kind of like sound waves reverberating in a room now. You know, like the gospel went from it went first toward Africa from Jerusalem, and then went from Jerusalem toward the west and Italy and England, and then went from England to Africa, and then to England and North America, and North America to Africa, and now Africa to North America and England. I mean, I think like Stephen Manyama, who was a guest a few years ago on our podcast, grew up in Africa.
Right. And as a minister,
and he's a minister in
Georgia.
Yeah. Because Georgia is like, well, Georgia needs more help with gospel proclamation
than Okura Island. Yeah.
Than Okura Island.
Yeah.
Okura Island is like is a missionary sending center.
Ever since they killed that cockerel and ate it, things have been pretty good over there on Okura Island.
Oh yeah.
No, I think that this is right. So yes, the gospel is there's this wonderful reciprocity going on. I mean, Paul, interestingly, has a similar argument from a theological perspective, not a financial one, in Romans, where he talks about Israel being the true vine, and then there's this wild olive branch. This would be the dog Gentiles.
Yeah.
And the wild olive branch is grafted into the Abrahamic vine.
Yeah.
And it turns out that a little bit of the Abrahamic vine has kind of been snapped off and withered, and that too might come back in.
And it might be grafted back in onto the olive branch. That's
so you got the Jews, so that's the kind of solid thing, but a bit of Jewishness falls off. Some Christians come in, and then now that the Christians have fixed the Jewish stuff, some Jewish people can come back. That's the book of Romans. And here he is saying it's not all he says. This is just one facet of a very complicated book. But here we go. The same thing with the money. The money's gone out, the gospel's gone out, and now they're encouraging one another. Tell us. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I just make one more point? Yeah. I think it's important that Christian giving is not giving to an institution; it's giving to a mission. Fundamentally,
which is why we say you don't give to a church; you give through a church.
Yeah. So, the giving Christian generosity from the very beginning, and this is really the first very clear sign or call to it that we see is in Paul's letters. You also have some women who supported Jesus' ministry giving out of their own means. But they too are supporting a mission. It's a movement dynamic and not an institute. It's not giving to prop something up. It's not pity giving, it's investment in the eschaton.
Yes, and it's so important that you say this. This is right. So the mindset of us, and we need to get into the passage, but the mindset of us as a church should not be poor-mouthing and begging bowls. And there was a time when a bowl would be passed around the church, an alms basin actually would be passed around a church. Yeah. Well, again, there was no Venmo. COVID kind of did away with the alms basin.
Yes.
But so does the cashless society. People just don't have, they've got fluff in their pockets. They don't have a roll of hundreds in their pockets anymore.
Yeah.
So we tend to give in quite a sanitized way from our bank account. But the church has been this thing historically that would look after the community. When you gave money to the church, it wasn't just for the church to hoard the cash. It was for the church to feed people.
But the feeding of people was part of the mission of proclaiming the gospel in word and deed.
We make this distinction, don't we, in our mission and outreach? We say that the mission budget, We say that the mission of the church is to proclaim the gospel.
Yeah.
And we say that outreach is giving someone a sandwich so that they're ready to listen to you proclaiming the gospel.
Yeah.
And that if our ministries as a church, our extended ministries, aren't in some way doing that, then it's just do-gooding. It's not really any different from the cat's home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the church, you give through a church. Whenever you give money to the church, it actually is designed to flow through it. And so that might be useful for leading people to Christ. It might be useful for practical help, feeding people, so that you can lead them to Christ.
Yeah.
It might be helpful for discipling the believers, which would be to just enable them to grow in maturity. And it might be useful for pastoring believers, which would be bringing the gospel to bear on traumatic situations at home or the end of life or something like that. So always when we give to the church, it has this missional dimension to it.
Yeah, it's all part of this mission thing.
So tell us a little bit about the Corinthian, I guess, take on what's going on in Thessalonica. What do the Corinthians learn about the Thessalonian church?
Yeah.
And what's Paul exhorting them to do in light of everything we've been studying the last few weeks?
Everything I can see is that the Corinthians are kind of full of themselves. They think that they're fantastic.
Okay.
But the things that they're lacking, are the real fruits of the Spirit. So this is why Paul says in where is it?
We've got the first bit of chapter 8 and the first bit of chapter 9, I think, today.
Yeah. So he said, we urged Titus, who is working with the Corinthians, that as he started, that so he should complete among you this act of grace, that's getting generosity. But as you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in all earnestness, and in our love for you, like you're excelling in everything, see that you also excel in this act of grace. So the act of grace that is specifically that the Thessalonians are excelling in is generosity. So he says, we want you to know, brothers, about the grace of God that has been given among the churches of Macedonia. Macedonia is this area, again, west of...
well, unless you go the other way.
Yeah.
It's just closer if you go west.
Yeah, it's all relative,
it's
right?
around. It's so cool, yeah.
So it's this area of kind of northern Greece. And so this includes the churches of Thessalonica and Philippi.
Yeah.
And one other one that I forgot.
The Berean church, maybe?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Berea. So, it's these poorer churches. And they are having a severe test of affliction, he says. Affliction.
There's that word again.
Pressure.
That pressure, pressing.
Thlipsis.
Yes. Okay.
Thlipsis.
In a severe test of affliction, their abundance of joy and their extreme poverty have overflowed in a wealth of generosity on their part. For they gave according to their means, as I can testify, and beyond their means, of their own accord, begging us earnestly for the favor of taking part in the giving of money to Jerusalem.
Relief of the saints. Yeah.
Wow.
And this, not as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord, then by the will of God to us. So
they're giving first to the Lord. So there's an interesting thing. He's using money language. Well, first of all, it's money. But then he uses this money language of giving themselves first to the Lord. Almost as though the money is serving as a window into their hearts. They prioritized God.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They gave first to the Lord.
Huh. Yeah. The first thing that they gave is not their money, but themselves.
Yes.
So if your money follows where you are, where your affections are, it's so interesting the way that he talks about giving.
Yes.
Because in the Old Testament you have the law of the tithe, right? If you're going to be a Jew, this is what you got to do. Right there.
Yeah.
The New Testament, Jesus says, I fulfilled the law and the prophets.
Yes.
And so the Old Testament, the tithe is fulfilled, perfect generosity is fulfilled in Christ.
Yes.
And then, and so through faith in Christ, you are counted as tithers.
And you are counted as though you'd sacrificed a bull, and counted as though you never ate a lobster, and counted and
all of the righteousness.
Yes.
And then, as you participate in his life, then you start to have generosity come forward as you participate in his generosity. So Paul, he could have like called them to be generous by just saying,
"Here's a rule,
guys. You ought to do this." Like,
he could have said it's a rule, or he could have laid a guilt trip on them and said, "You should do this."
Yeah, but he instead uses words like abundance of joy. Like, what a weird way to ask for money.
Well, it's a Christian way to ask for money.
Yeah,
because so the secular mind would say, if you give some money away, you get a little bit of money away. You actually feel quite good. Like lots of non-believers give money away. It feels nice to support a charity. But a secular mindset would say, don't give too much away.
Yeah.
Right.
You limit your options.
Yeah, because it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's quite rare for a secularist to be generous to the point of cost.
Well, money is essentially power in our society. In any society, really. It's the ability, it buys you the ability to do what you want to do. If you have unlimited money, you have near unlimited power.
Yeah.
And this is why the billionaires, what are the things that many of them, guys like Elon Musk, they're interested in a mission because they want to exercise their power. They want to use. They're not seeing that money as like a sort of just a comfort thing.
He's interesting because he says, whether you believe him or not, another matter, but he says that he's not motivated by money. He says that.
It's motivated by power.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, the billionaire class, they often don't want to give all their money to their kids. They've recognized somehow that if they just give it all to their kids, it will ruin their kids' lives. It's interesting how many of the most famous billionaires really try quite hard to protect their children from too much money. Yeah. Fascinatingly. But you're absolutely right. I mean, money is a god, isn't it?
It's a god.
If money's not a god, and we've talked about this before, it may well be the chief sacrificial substance that is offered to your god. If the god is success, then money is something you can lay at its feet in order to get the success.
Yeah.
But money is definitely power. Money gives you options, and it does do those things.
It's time. It's all those things. And so, but the movement of the gospel is of, we see it right in verse 9.
Yeah. This is following on from the point you were just making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you by his poverty might become rich. So the laying down of power is what Christ has done.
He gave himself first to you.
Yeah. And so his choice to lay down his power is ultimately what was the exercise of his power. So it's like, in some ways, you have your money, your power, whatever power you have, is given to you for the sake of giving it away. And your money, whatever money you have, is given to you for the sake of giving it away.
If the Lord is Lord, then the money is secondary. Yes. Yeah. And it's his.
Yeah.
And we're modeling, everything we're doing, we're modeling on Jesus here. So Jesus' infinite wealth, the wealth of being the sovereign of all things, he empties himself of that. He doesn't insist upon that right. So he makes himself poor in order to give you the richness of his status and his infinite wealth.
Yeah, and it's that laying down of wealth that is it's the movement of the gospel. And so we come to generosity then with, I guess, full wealth, right? Like,
because he's given it to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have spiritual wealth, and you have, that's the other thing that struck me on this passage. Basically what Paul says is, if you're not generous, it's a sign that basically it's because you're spiritually impoverished.
Yes.
verse 2, I expect him to say, that their abundance of joy and their extreme wealth have overflowed in a wealth of generosity on their part.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. It's their abundance of joy and their extreme poverty.
Right. And this is to prove, verse 8, that your love is genuine. So there's the other thing. If you had the genuine love of Christ in your heart, who himself, being rich, made himself poor,
yeah,
then you would respond like Christ.
Is your faith real?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Well, it's funny, isn't it, right? Because we'd say, okay, so, Jesus didn't lie, and Jesus, wasn't violent or sneaky, and there's all these things. Jesus had sexual fidelity. Jesus had all of these wonderful characteristics that we admire about Jesus. And we say, well, I want to be like Jesus. Well, here's another thing. Jesus had infinite wealth, and he made himself infinitely poor.
Yeah. So
that you could have infinite wealth by his poverty.
You want to be like Jesus? Empty yourself.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's a very, very, I think the thing that's especially challenging about this is that it doesn't have like a boundary. There's no point at which you're like, oh, I checked that off.
Well, that's what's so great about the 10% thing, is that it's so specific. It's not very much.
But it's
so
not
specific.
enough though.
No.
I mean, but I think that I think this is the only place where I am kind of like, I do think it's a helpful sort of like little boundary marker, personally. Rangefinder. But I know how I work. I make it into a law very easily. Well, and then I'm like, okay, check, did that.
Especially in our jobs. I mean, I can just have it deducted from my paycheck before I even get paid.
Yeah.
Lots of people could have a standing order from the bank or something, but I didn't even get it. So, because I get paid by the church. So I just don't even get the money.
Yeah.
And I think that you can almost just get used to it.
Yeah.
You just get used to what you have. I mean, you don't necessarily feel it. And I think sometimes that was what was beautiful about the old alms basin, was that you could feel putting the money in the bowl. It felt like something.
Yeah. You get to participate in that act of worship. But it is worship. And it's because it's acknowledging the superiority of God over everything else.
I mean, interestingly, and we've talked about this before as well, most of the time the Old Testament law, it required 100%. It required everything. So, you can't sleep with other, two other people's wives, or one other, you can't sleep with anybody else's wife, right? You can't cover anybody else's donkey. You can't worship any other gods. And you go through the law, right? It doesn't say honor your mum and, be a jerk to your dad. It's like, it's full. Every law is 100%. I want everything. And then we get to these two little exceptions, which would be rest and giving. God wants 1/7 of your time, and he wants 1/10 of your money under the law. And these are the things we balk at.
But in Christ, God wants 7/7 of your time and 10/10 of your money.
Yes.
So he forces upon you that difficult decision, because Jesus is the Sabbath rest, right?
He is. So
that's why we're not Sabbath literalists. Though I think we would say that if you don't rest on it, keep a Sabbath, you're idolatrous.
There was a scholar called Milgram, not a man on every point, but he talked about the principalization of the law. I'm not sure I actually am with him on it that much, but he was saying that there are certain principles behind the law that you can still look at. Rest is a good idea. Yeah,
sure. I think.
Why do people give money to the temple?
Yeah, but I think it's more. And I was thinking about this too, that if we have a graduated income tax system in America, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, if you make $700,000, you're going to pay a larger percentage, because if you make $700,000. 15% to you is not as big of a deal as 3% to someone who makes $20,000 a year, right? Who can't even afford to live. So
right, because your gas and your food cost the same. Yeah.
So again, we can debate whether the state should excise a graduated income tax from you, but what I think can't debate is that as you have more money, the proportion that would be truly sacrificial becomes higher.
Yeah, you would think so. Yes. And yet here we have a church which is the poorest of all the New Testament churches giving the most.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing that we often see.
And like Jesus says, like he sees all these wealthy people putting their money in, and then he sees a widow come up and put 2 pennies. And he says, she's given more than all the rest.
Yeah, my previous church, the little church that I ran, I'd say probably more than half the congregation lived in a group home. Yeah. And so giving was always a fascinating thing because, I mean, they didn't have most of the people in the Friends of Jesus, the group for adults with learning difficulties, profound difficulties. They didn't have control of their own finances.
Yeah.
And so sometimes a man called Paul or a lady called Anne would give me like cookies.
Yeah.
They'd give me something of their own.
Wow.
And you know, I'm not going to take the cookies and put them in the offering pot. I just ate them. But it was really nice.
Did you report those cookies to the IRS?
There's no IRS. Her Majesty's Revenue.
Oh yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't report them to Her Majesty's Revenue as an emolument, a taxable emolument. I'm not sure. That's a great question. I should perhaps think about that.
I just wanted to make sure we crossed the T's and dotted the I's on that.
The matter's time barred now anyway. But good point, actually. I should think about it. I'll think about it. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
You've disturbed me.
Trying to help you.
Put down on the ledger. One jammy dodger, courtesy of Paul Hankin.
It's probably good enough, Alex. It's probably fine.
So 2 Corinthians 8, right? He goes off on another tangent, and we pick up the money stuff in chapter 9.
Yeah.
Right. So he's set out this thing which you've helpfully taken us through. Okay, about with the context of him commending the Thessalonian church to the Corinthian church, specifically commending their desire to put Jesus first and manifesting putting Jesus first through money, which is exactly what he did for us. He was rich, he made himself poor, and doing it all to show genuinely where their hearts were. That's chapter 8.
Yeah. And so therefore, that's why he says each one, chapter 9, verse 7, must give as he has decided in his heart. Not reluctantly or under compulsion. This is so important for Christian giving. It's not actually Christian giving if it's compelled.
No.
If it's forced or reluctant. Giving. That's legal.
That's legal. What's that taxing? It's legal.
That's taxing or robbery. But
it's just a different system.
Yeah.
I was talking to Yair, who runs a Dat Shalom around the corner, synagogue, and they just send a bill. To be a member of a Dat Shalom, you just simply get a bill and you just pay your dues.
Oh,
the Jews have dues, and that's what they have to pay. And then if you pay, just like being in a club or whatever, then you're in.
You're in good standing.
Yeah, it's that simple. I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's amazing. That's so easy. Like so straightforward. He goes, well, how do you do it? And I was like, wow.
Let me tell you.
So we begin in about August. We make a really nice brochure. I stand at the front and I wave it at people for 4 months, and eventually half of them respond. It's like, oh, okay, that sounds terrible.
and we well, I think it's because we're not, our main aim as pastors.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we're responsible for keeping the doors open on this place, right? Like, so the church needs money. And so that's why we talk about money, and we talk about money in November because that's when everybody's making their budget for next year. And that's when we're making our budget for next year.
Yeah. The church's financial year runs Jan to Jan. Yeah.
But we are not, more than being responsible for an institution, as being a shepherd is being responsible for people's souls, that we've proclaimed the gospel fully. Mm-hmm. And if we don't challenge each other to respond to the gospel in radical generosity, we're basically robbing our people of an experience of grace.
Evidently.
Because that's what Paul says. Giving is generosity is the fruit of grace. And what is grace? It's the free self-giving of Christ that abounds into joy. So,
for God loves a cheerful giver.
Alacrity.
This is the alacrity word, Ben, with which you've begun the
or celerity, as you put it, which comes from a similar root word to celery, which means speeding or fast growing or so alacrity.
Very helpful. Cheerful eagerness.
And you want to tell us more about, you were very excited about this word alacrity and celerity.
I'm always excited when you take a word that you know really well and you're saying, let's define this. And you define it with a word that you know less well. And when you look at the word you know less well, you come across a word you've never even heard of before. I always think that's wonderful. Like, this is literally the opposite of anything helpful.
which is kind of our MO in this podcast, actually.
Yes.
we take great joy in that.
I have never used the word celerity in all of my life. I've never.
Well, you just did.
I know, but I didn't know this word until an hour ago.
Yeah. No, I didn't either. You were like, I've got a word for you.
Celerity.
And I was like, is it a word from the Lord? And the word was celerity.
Yeah.
So cheerfulness, and I think it comes from joy, like the sense of joy that like this giving, giving keeps the doors open on the church.
Yeah.
Practically speaking.
It does that.
We don't give, and you and I go find jobs somewhere else, and
not only do we have to find jobs somewhere else, but the congregation has to find somewhere else to go, because that money pays the gas bill and it pays the tax bill and the electric bill, and we have all the bills that you would normally have in any organization, and then you have upkeep and repairs, and on top of that, you then have the actual resources that the people use when they come here.
Yep,
tea and coffee and paper and all that stuff.
But even more than that, what we give is not just to the institution. We're actually, through the church, we're giving to Christ.
And this is more important.
In obedience to Christ. The spiritual reality is not divorced from the physical. It's actually the physical is spiritual and the spiritual is physical. It's all of a piece.
Yes, that's really helpful. But the theological case for giving is more significant than the practical case for giving.
Yeah.
So yes, this is a building, this is an organization, and therefore it needs operational expenses and income and all that stuff, like any small business or public body, the library, whatever.
Yeah.
But absolutely right. The theological case, though, is it works whatever's happening. So if the church becomes 400 people strong, and that doesn't mean we need less money.
Yeah.
Because the giving ought to be primarily a function of your walk with God, not primarily a response to a specific need.
Yeah. And I think correct me if I'm wrong with this, but I think the Bible does make this, I think this is a pretty clear promise that, as you give, you will receive joy.
Yeah.
In the gospel.
Right. And you could explore why that's the case. I mean, I guess it's the case because you're acting like Jesus, and that's a good thing to do. It's the case that you're killing an idol, and that's a good thing to do. It's the case that you're actually going to see fruit from that work. It's just going to be pleasing to see a thing.
I think it would, and you're not fighting against the movement of divine generosity that is breaking in on your life.
And by far, I think that point you just made is more important than any of the 3 points I made. You're couching this in a as part of a spiritual dynamic, not an exchange or a trade.
Like God, God is moving in you, Christ in you, and Christ for you, has come and lives by His Spirit and wants to transform you into a person of joy.
Yeah,
and if you hold tight-fisted, and the more you hold tight-fisted to your money, the more you're taking worry on about your future, and you're trying to control everything, and that takes away joy.
Now, interestingly, he goes on then to talk about some fairly practical things, right? So I think you've laid the groundwork that this is fundamentally a theological function, this giving.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual function or something like that. It's a charismatic function, this giving. But it's still practical because he says this. So verse 8, God's able to make all grace abound to you so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. So he'll give you enough money. And then he goes on to illustrate it in verse 10 and down. He who supplies seed to the sower, bread for food, will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way, to be generous in every way, which through us will produce thanksgiving to God.
So basically, you give, and God will provide you enough to give.
Yeah.
You seek to join into his movement of divine generosity, he'll provide you with enough.
So you will actually have a house and a car and things like that. But he says in verse 12, for the ministry of this service is not only in supplying the needs of the saints, which would be paying the gas bill, but is also overflowing in many thanksgiving to God, which would be that charismatic or spiritual dynamic of being in a giving relationship with God.
Yeah. Where you're receiving his self-giving, and then you're giving, and as you give, you receive more of his self-giving because you're more open to his self-giving, and then that enables you to give more. And then next thing you know, you're not anxious because you're like, think about it this way. Like if you had a constant flow of cash into your bank account all the time, you wouldn't be worrying about money. You'd be like, well, it's flowing in so fast. Like it's just flowing and flowing and flowing and flowing more than you ever need. Everything is always provided for. Your relationship with money changes from being money being the thing that controls everything to money just being sort of a means that you move through as a fish swims through water.
The intractable problems have always been the growth points for us in our faith, haven't they? The things when we've come up against a problem that we can't fix.
Yeah.
Whether that's an interpersonal dynamic and we've kind of stuffed up and we want to try and repair a relationship, or we've double committed to a thing, or we've got something's broken at home and we can't afford to fix it. These moments of being in over our heads have been amazing for us both.
Yeah. Spiritually
speaking. Much more than the times of plenty.
Yeah. And there's proverbs about this. It's better. It is better to have more of God. You'll be happier. Your family will be happier. I want to read this quote of John Calvin because John Calvin is sort of when I think of like the classic Protestant work ethic guy, responsibility kind of, it's this old Swiss theologian, right? He lived in the 16th century, and he writes this: the thing that makes us more close-fisted than we should be with our money is that we are too careful and look too far forward at possible dangers that might come upon us, and so become too cautious and anxious and work out too fretfully how much we are going to need during our whole life and how much we lose when the smallest part is taken away. But the man who depends on the Lord's blessing has his mind set free from these vexatious cares, and at the same time, his hand set free for beneficence. This is the fitting music for John Calvin.
He loved it.
John Calvin and Pink Floyd.
There's a narrow band of men of a certain age who are loving this podcast now. But all the women have turned off.
Long ago.
Typical Pink Floyd concerts, about 99% guys.
Just a dude fest.
And a couple of really angry looking women.
Sorry, ladies.
This has been a podcast of Christ Church, Fox Chapel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy.
Wasn't right.